we here now, episode 9, I Can. We, myself and my co-host Mike,
yes,
and the listeners, here is a double entendre. Trying to be present at all times and listening intentionally.
yes,
Not listening to speak, hearing to understand. And now, this moment, is the only thing that's promised as far as time goes.
beautiful.
Up until now. All right, we have a guest today. Dan, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, be happy to. So Dan Krause, father and a husband, new-ish father,
Okay.
baby daughter, Edie Ray. She's about to be 2 in January.
Okay.
And work with Hopeworks, work at Hopeworks
Okay.
in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay.
And yeah.
And we can't go any further without thanking Hannah for the brownies.
Yeah.
You know, so we appreciate the brownies, and they will be handled.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for that.
For sure. Hey Dan, talk to us about where you're from, where you live at now, and a couple of experiences in between.
Sure, be happy to. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
From Cheltenham.
Okay.
So right outside of Philadelphia, basically it does border Philadelphia.
Okay.
So for those that are familiar, Cheltenham High School is where I went. Cheltenham Elementary
Okay.
is my elementary school.
Yeah.
And I've basically been in Cheltenham or in Philadelphia almost my whole life.
Okay.
So 34 of the 36 years I've spent in Cheltenham or Philadelphia.
Okay.
Went to Temple, and I live in Fishtown now. I've been in Philadelphia, living in Philly since 2002.
Okay.
And I love it. I love the city.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a part of the city.
Yeah.
And I'm always learning new things about the city, which is fun too.
Awesome.
As you talk about learning new things, and it sounds like you've been a part or experienced, you lived in diverse neighborhoods. From what I know about those areas, can you talk about the importance of exposure to different people and things and learning for yourself, and how did those experiences shape your perspective and mindset?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's fundamental for me. So it's funny, I live in Fishtown now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very rapidly changing neighborhood and has been for about 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Gentrifying, a lot of new, even 5 years ago to now, in terms of the different people moving in from New York and from all over the place.
Okay.
But started in Cheltenham, which was a pretty diverse neighborhood.
Okay.
Went to Cheltenham Elementary, which was a really diverse elementary school, and that was important for me. Like at the time, you don't know. You're a kindergarten, first, second grader. You're not thinking about those things. But looking back, it was really important for me to have close friends. One of my closest friends, his name was Cosmos Yantos, right off the boat, like Greek.
Yeah.
And his family, we would do Opa, which is like a big Greek festival.
Okay.
My first grade teacher, Miss Cameron, was African American woman, and I think, again, at the time didn't think anything of it, but looking back, it was really important for me to have a really diverse set of friends and students that I went to school with, and having a teacher, somebody that I respected, that I learned from, that I probably had a crush on, that but all things that cared for me, and just was a really positive role model and somebody that I learned from.
Yeah.
And all throughout, I had teachers that were Asian and black and Indian and white, and just a real melting pot, and that was helpful for me because I think learning from them and experiencing different cultures helps round somebody out, and that you're not super quick to judge.
Okay.
Or you experience things firsthand, and that helps with understanding.
Right. You had a higher level of understanding, right? Right.
For sure. If you're, in an isolated area, and you don't have that diversity, you don't have that interaction or exposure, then what do you know? You hear things from maybe television, or for third party, right? Like it's not firsthand experience,
right?
And that could be misleading. It could be inaccurate, but that's all you know, and that shapes who you are and what you perceive people to be, or other groups. And I think that I'm fortunate and lucky that I had the opportunity to have, and not just in terms of like, the color of your skin, but also like where you're from, or the amount of wealth or the lack of wealth that you have.
Yes.
Just seeing people. But there's so many like positive experiences that I had throughout that give me. I'm an optimist, and again, like I'm fortunate to have these experiences so that I can see the good in all different groups of people. I'll give you an example. I started off my career as a teacher, so I went to school at Temple.
Okay.
Right, went for education, and then taught in the Philadelphia School District for a number of years. And I was in Kensington at a school, John B. Stetson Middle School, which I loved. Stetson was a crazy place.
Yeah.
Like anybody will tell you.
Yeah.
And it was during some really tough years in Kensington. It was during like when a lot of Philadelphia public schools were getting shut down and converted into charter schools. They called it the Renaissance program, and we were still a public school. My first year was a mess. Anybody that teaches their first year, they don't know. Kids were taking advantage of me.
Yeah.
It was, for lack of a better term, it was kind of like a shit show.
Right.
But you start to, you're there if you do it for the right reason. You're reliable, and you keep coming, and you show people who you are, and they get to learn from you. And you're just true to yourself. Say what you mean, and do what you say.
Yeah.
They'll come around. So I was able to make connections and build trust. And what's really funny is, so I taught in an ESL format, so most of our students were not native English speakers, predominantly Hispanic, but we also had students that were from, Asia and Africa, speaking all of their languages.
Okay.
So communication for me was key, but listening was more important.
Yeah.
Because if I just stood up there and talked the whole time, they're not going to really understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And, they're not going to learn, and I'm not going to learn from them. And I think that's really important to me.
Yeah. You mentioned that being like the 30-70 rule or something like that.
So as a teacher in ESL, you're supposed to talk 30% of the time, and listen and let them talk 70% of the time. And like that's been such a huge help for me. It trained me, not just in teaching, but like now how I conduct myself in business meetings and everything.
I was gonna say we can all learn from that in all settings.
And I don't think growing up that philosophy was anything any of my teachers had. You said listen 30? Listen 30?
No, well in ESL, as a teacher, I'm supposed to just speak 30% of the time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
listen 70.
Yeah, listen 70.
Yeah, I've never experienced that in my life in school.
Yeah. And not like talk at you,
Right.
but like talk with you.
Right.
Which is really hard. Like I still struggle with it, and I'm not perfect, and like that's something that everybody will like have to work on.
Yeah.
And it's a continual progression. But here back, so I'm teaching. And I'm starting to make inroads with my students, and they're starting to like me. And the first, like, when I knew that I was starting to get accepted, they would make fun of me from the beginning. That wasn't anything new. Like, you have to have tough skin to be a teacher. But one of my students, who really didn't speak much English at all, towards the end of the school year, was like, "Hey, Mr. Krause, you know who you look like?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Here we go. Yeah.
I'm like, who do I look like?
Yeah.
And they're like, you look like Rocky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's like one of the nicest things anybody's ever said to me.
The Italian style.
And they're like, nah, like when Rocky got knocked out. Like now that he has a stroke because your eye is a little droopy. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But like he smiled and he like meant it.
Yeah.
And he kind of was like, felt comfortable enough to like make fun of me.
Yeah.
And that's just how Philly, like we're really hard.
Oh yeah, we know Philly.
You mentioned that, but that's a part of trust, and I think, sharing that type of thing and being confident that it wouldn't be taken the wrong way, one. We have different ways in which we express our humor, our bonds. Yeah. So we, some of it might be screaming, some of it might be, like you said, inviting you into that exchange of making fun of. Not saying that it's the right thing to do, but you recognized it as embrace.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. Cool. Can you talk about other? How important do you feel building trust and taking the time to ask and trying to understand this?
Yeah, I mean it's really important. I think so often like we assume we know, or we'll make real quick judgments.
Yeah.
Or like, and I know you guys have talked about it before, like people are thinking about the next question without even listening to like what somebody has to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And for me, like I was always, I'm a curious person. I wanted to get to know my students so I could better help them, and that's get to know their families, like see where they live, see where they hang out, ask them like, where's the best place to get empanadas, Batalios in Kensington. A in Indiana. Okay, let's go there.
Right.
Like after school, I'll walk there.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Mr. Krause, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, well, can you protect? Like, I'm with you. Like, I want to do it.
You give me the pass,
right? Yeah. Exactly. Like, there's no denying. I'm like a white male, and they're like, all right, you're good. Like,
right.
And then we'll eat. And we'll eat food or go like there's pizza place that they want to go to. All right, well, let's get pizza.
Right.
And like honestly, everybody loves food, and that's a really that's a motivating factor. We want to build trust.
Yeah.
Like let's just hang out outside of school, talk, eat, and get to know each other.
Yeah, that was dope to do that, because you was able to channel into two different stigmas or cliches. One, me being a Caucasian man in this urban environment, I don't know how to, move a certain way. And two, I'm a teacher. 3 o'clock, I'm out of here. No, let's knock down both of those stigmas and recreate our own narrative with just trust, right? Yeah. So that's the beautiful thing within that. But you can't even get to that point if I'm only hearing you. I'm listening to you, so I know what you like. I know what you see. Yeah. Let me dive into your reality real quick, right? And now we'll be able to do things in a better way, right? If I trust you, if you trust me, I can actually teach you something. This is what it's all about. So
those two things, Mike, that's pretty heavy, man. When you said them, instantly made me think of teachers that don't give that. So you talk about 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, I'm done.
Yeah.
And both of those things takes you outside of that, because that's not in the handbook.
No.
No, definitely not. I mean, I did a lot of things that were not in the handbook. Yeah. Like, but you have to be vulnerable at times, and like you have to put yourself out there. It's like another example is, I mean, and I think you guys probably picked up on it like right away earlier. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to a ton of rap. Like that's not my genre. But I'll ask students what kind of music they listen to, and I'll listen. And the same thing with food, and the same thing with just like, what do you like to talk about? Yeah. And it, for me as an ESL teacher too, like it got them talking. Yeah. Like I'll ask. We call it like a plant question, but to get them talking, get them opening up, and that was key for me. So. Like another thing that was really funny is, I would self-deprecate, like I would make fun of myself just to let my guard down, so that they didn't feel as if it was such like a formal situation. Like, and I would play music that I liked, that I knew they would laugh at. So like I would play The Doors. It was raining. We have these huge windows, can't open up. It's a thunderstorm. And I would put Riders on the Storm, the Doors,
Okay.
They never heard that.
Right.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I'm smiling, big cheesing smile up, and they were like, who the hell is this guy? But they liked that.
No,
it was different.
You were exposing them to things outside of themselves, and so one, you talk about this, but you care for them.
Yeah.
So you never even said that, but you can hear it. You know, all those things that you're doing is because you had interest in that person, and not just clocking in and clocking out and handing in your timesheet and saying, I did my 9 to 5, can you give me my check? You had vested interest in building them, and building the people, those young humans, into better adults, and you found the way in which to do that.
Yeah, and there's a selfishness part. Like, there's intrinsic reward and value. Like, obviously,
can you say that again?
There's intrinsic reward and there's value in it. Like, I like to see people progress. It's something that, you know, is
personally rewarding.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
And like, you know, the fact, like, I think about it now and I'm smiling because I look back, like, I was way over ambitious for certain things. We did plaster masks. You know, we're learning about different cultures.
Yeah.
So we're making masks with paper mache and plaster,
Right.
and forming it. I had never done it before.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, look it up, like look how to do it. We're like using water from the water fountain.
Okay.
It's like sticking to the kids.
Oh, you're not supposed to do that. Okay.
Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
Apparently not.
Right.
Where like my janitor at my school was like, are you gonna clean this mess up? And like, I'm like spending time now after, and also like I have to send these kids home with like paper mache and plaster and like their hair and then their clothes. So they had the best time, and like their parents, you know, once you get past that, they talk about it, and that's when I know like it wasn't just important for me to build a bond with the students. I really like cared about Kensington, and I still do. I like the neighborhood a lot. I think it gets a bad rap.
It's a rough start right now. It's really contaminated with heroin.
Yeah.
And it's really rough. And just to think about the kids, the trauma that, you know, they're going through, seeing these things, hearing these things, maybe for some of them even being a part of these things. When they go to school, they're already coming into school like, I hate this place. I hate my teacher. Right? So now those face painting experiences, it takes them out their own element, right? And it's like it's a recreation of their mind. It's a recreation of their space. So I like that. I love to hear that. And man, my fault. Hey,
no, you can straight.
Because I really can't tell you, man. When we was in school, the parking lot for the teachers at 3 o'clock, you would have thought it was NASCAR, man. It was crazy. What was about to say?
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, I was gonna build off your point. You know, the love in which you put into things, and I just was gonna kind of ask how important a support group is and community is. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, so Mike, you touched on it. Like, the young people that I taught had experienced trauma that I never had experienced, right? And like I learned about this. And look, you know, Cheltenham is you know, it's border Philadelphia, and it has a wide socioeconomic, you know, spectrum.
Right.
But like I was fortunate to have a good family, good parents, like well taken care of. Some of my students didn't have that.
Right.
You know, suffered from food insecurity, suffered from homelessness. We would do house visits, especially if like, you know, the students weren't there.
Right.
And like you would see things that really shocked me, especially as like a, you know, young 20-year-old.
Yeah.
But also like they noticed it. Like they noticed that you're coming out. They noticed that you cared about them.
Right.
And not just like the students, but the parents too. And that support network, having peers, so having people, young people that they could like be friends with, but also having people outside of their peer group and outside of the community to care for them is huge. And it's vice versa. I had a flat tire. Like I'm driving to school. It's, I don't know, like 6:40 in the morning.
Okay.
And I get a flat tire like 2 blocks away from school, and I'm like, you know, F it. I'm not going to deal with it. Like I'm just going to park my car like in front of the school, and I'll deal with it after school. I'm not going to get dirty. I'm not going to change the tire right before I got other things to think about.
Right.
This is when I know. This is like, you know, a couple years in. I had students, I had siblings already. Like, it started to feel like they recognized me, they knew me. they knew my car. I didn't know this, but they did.
Right.
I came out of Stetson, walking to my car expecting to have to change a flat tire, and it was not only was a donut on there, they had changed my tire. They left me a note and said, "Hey, address of where I could pick up that flat tire."
Right.
Like, that was probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for me.
That's how.
Right.
It was, and it made me feel like I was indebted to the community in a good way. Like, like they cared so much about me that they fixed my tire, and like I owe them, and I owe the community, and I still to this day, like, I love Kensington. It was, like you said, and still is a crazy place. So when I was there was a serial killer that was murdering prostitutes there. Like, I don't know if you remember that.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Like, it's a neighborhood that has challenged, but there's so much good things that happen in the neighborhood that people don't talk about.
Right.
And like, you have to experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's going back to, like, you can hear about a neighborhood in the news and you can hear about all these things.
Yeah.
But you don't know unless you're there, unless you physically go and visit. And I still don't have the level of understanding that the people that actually live in Kensington do. Like, let's not, like, let's not make any like preconceived notions. I was there and I worked there and I spent time there.
Right.
But I also was able to leave there and go home at night. It's a different situation than like being there the whole time. So, take everything with a grain of salt. Like, I love it and I know it, but I don't live it like they live it.
No, and that's I think one of the things that I take away from those type of experiences being I'm able to travel to different states and see absolutely the extremes of both sides. I've seen that in every state I've been to. And what we forget about when it comes to, I'll call them the war zones, is that there's children there, and everything that we talk about, everything that we treat like a plant. Like, you don't try to change the plant, you change its environment, and I think that's what people forget. Like, they want to throw a kid away, holler at them, all these different things with the kid, but they don't think about the things that led them up to doing whatever they're doing, how they were raised, any of that. So my thing is, I feel like I've always felt like you have to treat the environment to help raise. And I know it says it takes a village; those are one of the cliches.
Yeah.
But I think just treating the environment, building having economic impact.
Right.
Because if their parent has a job, if their uncle has a job, if their uncle isn't on a corner, then they have a better way to go. I'll just say. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, opportunity. And like, you touch on something real quick, Eric. Like, it's real easy for people to tell others what to do or make judgments or preconceived notions when, like, you go to bed in a warm bed.
Yeah.
You open your refrigerator and it's full of food.
Yeah.
And like, oh, this kid's not paying attention in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons why. Do you take the time to understand?
Right.
Or to listen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or maybe what you're talking about isn't of interest to them. Like, maybe, like, there's there's a lot.
Step your game up. Yeah.
And to both of your points, what is that kid going through who is very aware it's a serial killer going around? Mm-hmm. More so, what's the kid going through who, unfortunately, is the son of the mother, who is a prostitute, who has no education, who has no source of income, so she resorts to that to conceptualize some income. That's his mother, and now he's forced to go to school. She's forced to go to school because it's no one else there to raise them. Yeah. And then so now this kid's coming in, and sadly, most of the time, the first thing that teachers will think is, oh, here you go. You were disrupting the class. You're not here to learn. You know who this kid is. You know what this kid's going through, or even just the trust. Now this kid's coming to school. I don't even want to talk to a man because I know with men or the girl, the little girl, that disconnect right there psychologically. Mr. Dan, I'm cool. You can't. I know what you do. Not you as a race. You as a human. I know what men do. where did she end up at? Where did she end up at? You know?
Yeah. There's a lot of like negative connotation and stigma. Like we talk about this at Hopeworks, like invisible backpack. Like everybody's got stuff they're carrying. Like you can't see it. I don't know.
I had an invisible backpack. Going to school, but go ahead.
I said real talk. I had one. I was a superhero. I had my invisible backpack.
In my books.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But like what does everybody carrying around with them that like can set somebody off or like can just have somebody distracted. Their mind is not there. I mean, a lot of our young people are experiencing hardships and challenges and don't have the coping mechanisms that we do, or just time and experiences that we do, where we're a little bit more adept at handling those things.
Yeah.
That they're just 8, 10, 12, 14. They're just trying to get by.
I think that, and one of the biggest things that people don't realize that greatness. And you don't if you don't highlight those things and people don't tell them that they're great, they don't see it in themselves. I remember there was a guy that was 7 foot tall, right? And he robbed the bank or robbed some people. And then when he got caught, he said, "How did they know it was me?" He's 7 foot tall. He said so she recognized that.
Right.
So he had no idea. Right. He had no idea. He didn't see himself.
Right.
And that's just a small example of it. Hopeworks. What you talk about all these things. You told us you work at Hopeworks. I want to talk a little bit about when I met you. It was at a conference, and you were just introducing yourself to me. And I was there in the capacity of the company that I work for, and you said, "I just want to introduce myself." And the day before, I was just talking to a friend of mine in the book club, and he talked about how we talk about trauma a lot and the things that we went through as kids, and he always emphasizes that, "Nah, man, that was trauma. Like those beatings I used to get was trauma, and it's not right." And we need to talk a little bit more about how to treat trauma. I think we need to introduce a book that talks about how to treat trauma. So that weighed on me a lot. And I would always say it was the tools that were given to them at the time. It wasn't in one person's playbook. It was in everybody's playbook in our community.
Right.
That was what you did wherever they saw something in the streets that they wanted you to keep you away from. So their way of keeping you off those streets was to beat it out of you, whether it was what they felt like. And I'm not giving it. I'm not saying it was right, but I feel like those were the tools that we had. I mean, now the tools are timeouts. There's a different set of tools. But when I first met you, one of the first things you said to me, you said, you work at Hopeworks, and you said we treat trauma.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so it was kind of meant for me.
It actually exists. You can treat trauma.
Yeah, so exactly, Mike. That's exactly what popped in my head. So you talk about all these experiences. Can you talk about what led you to Hopeworks?
Yeah. So I'll talk about what led me, and then I'll talk a little bit about Hopeworks.
Okay.
It's funny. So my daughter Edie Ray, she's about to be 2 in January. So when I first had her, I went from taught in Philadelphia public schools for a number of years, and then I left. I liked teaching, but I didn't love it. And like, if you don't love teaching, you're not going to make it, right? Okay. It's burnout, and it's emotionally heavy, and let's be real, it's not like you're making a ton of money. So I knew I was looking for something else, and I went from teaching to like educational consulting to sales, and then for 10 years, so fast forward 10 years of my life, got married, all that. I was in sales, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I worked for a company, ADP. They took great care of me. I had my daughter, and everything was good, but it wasn't great. And for some reason, just like right when I had my daughter and I was coming home, my wife Hannah, who I love, was like, "You're not the same person. Like, you should be super excited. You have this daughter. Like, what's going on?" I was like, I don't know. I need to change. She was like, you need to find something that you love to do. Like, you need that spark again.
Yeah.
And I felt like I owed it to Edie Ray, my daughter, and like to Hannah. Like, I wanted to be more present, just be happier. And so I thought, all right, I'll volunteer. Like, I miss teaching and the intrinsic value and reward of like working with young people. I miss that. So I'll volunteer. And I heard about Hopeworks, and so I went. And what's cool about Hopeworks, it's a nonprofit, and they work with youth. But the youth provide the tour. So here are these young people. I opened up the door, and I was like, all right, I'm going to check this out. Within about 5 minutes, I realized very quickly it wasn't about like convincing me that Hopeworks was the right place and that I should spend my time at Hopeworks. It was convincing Hopeworks that I was the right candidate. Like, I should be here. This is where I should work.
Right.
And it's a, you know, I was lucky that I was able to do that, and fortunate that, you know, I was able to get a job there. And Hopeworks is interesting. So, long story short, because Hopeworks does a ton of things. It's a nonprofit in Camden, been around 20 years.
Okay.
And it works with young people from underserved communities, right? So Camden, Philly, Chester, Delaware. These are young people that aren't on that traditional track, right? They maybe not have, you know, graduated high school. Okay. They might not have gone to college. In fact, most of our young people have it, right? These are people that have experienced trauma.
Yeah.
You know, battling with food insecurity, battling with homelessness, been, you know, sex trafficked, been, you know, having issues with substance abuse, or been, you know, previously incarcerated. And these are young people that many, Eric, like you were talking about, people would just cast off. Like, forget about them. Yeah. They're done. Yeah. Like, but they're not. They're 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old.
Can't throw them away, man.
What do you, I mean, that's...
So there's one thing that I just read, and I actually just posted it. If Malcolm X were to die at 19, no, it was Maya Angelou. If she were to die at 19, she would have died a prostitute. If Malcolm X were to die around that same time, he would have been a hustler or a pimp. You know, you can't stop these stories. You just can't throw people away. And your experience at Hopeworks, I had the opportunity to go there, and one of the first things that hit me, like Dan told me to come and talk to some of the young people. Yeah. And I said, all right, no problem. And he said, we're going to give you a tour first. Yeah. I said, all right, great. So he introduced me to one of the young people and walks away. Yeah. Yeah. So he says, this is such, they're going to take you on a tour, and he walked away, and I didn't see him or any other adult outside of them introducing me to a supervisor or something like that, and I'm just saying hi. Throughout the whole tour, it was them having a very in-depth discussion about what Hopeworks was, what it was about. Left me with no questions as far as what do you do here, why do you do this. Kind of took me to meticulously through through the experience, and it was really that's one of the first things that I took away from that. As I sat down to talk to them, it put me on a level of everybody's valuable. You know, you bring the same thing I'm bringing to the table. You're no different than me. I'm no better than you, and we're all even. And even after the conversation, they kind of took us through and continue to talk about Hopeworks and definitely touch on what you guys do at the end of the day. So,
Dan, I'm sorry, quick question. Is it a reason behind Hopeworks making the kids do the tour? Talk to me about that.
There you go.
So, so the youth-led tour is a couple of different things, right? Okay. It's valuable, like, experience for them in terms of professional development. Like, they need to be comfortable with, you know, talking to people that they're not familiar with, public speaking. Right. But they also know the program better than anybody. I mean, they're part of the program, right? And truthfully, like, if you're coming, you want to learn about the program, you also want to know, like, what's the young person's experience, because they'll tell you. Yeah. They'll tell you if it's positive, it's helpful. Yeah. They'll tell you what they like about it. Right. What are the challenges with it. Right. It's authentic voice. You want to talk about an authentic voice. And
extremely candid, yeah.
Who better than the young people that go through it? Yeah. So it's a little bit like, hey, they need that to get that chops, like to get that experience so that they get comfortable talking with people. But also, you know, if I gave the tour, in the back of your mind, you're thinking like, what are the young people like? What are they getting out of it? And
Yeah.
do they like it?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of by design.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, we were talking about building trust, like, you're talking about food, right? Getting people talking about things. You want somebody, like, especially somebody that has had a lot of, whether it's trauma or challenges, they need small wins. Like, they need to feel self-worth.
Yeah.
So if they can give a tour, which doesn't to us seem like a big deal, but to them does, like, they feel like, hey, I have something worth value, and I'm a little bit more confident because I can take Mike through this whole place, tell him what Hopeworks is, answer his questions, and like to us that might not be a big thing, but to them that's a win.
That's a big thing.
And they just need more wins.
It's a big thing.
And for people that haven't had a lot of success, like even this kid that was making fun of me, like that's a win for him. He, you know, Rocky, like he was able to speak English and associate me with, you know, an actor and like all these things. So like in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm so proud of him. I mean, he just cut me, but I'm so.
You know,
proud
when
of
he
him.
asked you that is when you were speaking about your wife Hannah and you being happy and doing something you love. You was like, you know, I had to be more present there. And when I heard about the kids doing a tour, I said to myself, I said, what better way is it for them to be more fully present at Hopeworks that they themselves are doing a tour? So as I'm giving you a tour, I'm, you know, consciously showing myself what I'm doing, right? Versus just Bob or Jamal over there and you doing a tour. Yeah, let me show you what they're doing. No. They have to show you what they're doing themselves. So now they're becoming more present within the moment, right? And now they actually start to see hope does work, right? So that's beautiful within itself that they have to do that.
So Mike, can you? I mean, you're saying these things. So can you touch on?
Yeah, my fault. Your face. It was love it. It was love it. That's all.
No, you because I know you worked in different places, right? And you worked amongst children, and you so I want you to touch on that a little bit, and then I want Dan to kind of speak to why Hope works and what's the difference, because Mike's going to kind of tell you the difference, but you can speak to.
Well, one of my first quote unquote jobs that involved children, it came with my best friend, who was our production manager, was coaching basketball, right? And that was really big. And then from there, I worked at a place called Vision Quest New Direction, where it was a holding facility when adolescent youth were going through the court process. And then from there, I had a job at St. Gabriel Hall, who unfortunately they just got shut down because they don't have the funding. They were pretty much one and the same. Actually, so was I lost a thought. Where the juvenile detention center in Philly, I forgot. Oh, I'm sorry, the youth detention center.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the biggest difference between what we were doing there and what you guys are doing, one, it's a holding facility, so it's baby prison, and even with the school they had implemented, it was no teaching going on. It was no hope going on. It was no meetings or ideologies of what do you do next, what are you doing now. That was something that I myself and other staff members had to take the initiative to do, and a huge amount of the kids showed me how real trauma was, right? We all go through trauma. I have some really huge trauma stories myself, but the stories I was hearing from these kids, and I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense now why you would do something out of this world when you were placed out of this world through your trauma. And hearing the stuff that you guys do, if we just did a little bit of that, we probably would have been able to give some more salvation to the children. And we failed there. But somewhere I hope we won, right? Just teaching them things. And the last thing I say is, when I heard everything you said that you guys deal with in terms of sex trafficking, homelessness, all of those things I heard. I'm face to face as well. And one of the biggest traumas that these children face is just human trauma, just living in the world. Where you come from, if you're African American, your biggest human trauma is the understanding of your heritage with slavery. Same thing with Jewish, Asian, and Cambodian, right? Coming from third world countries where you have to bathe or drink poisoned water. You know the water's poison, but you don't drink it, you die of thirst. If you do drink it, you may die of poison. And we're so privileged in America, right? It's a lot to unpack, to say the least.
It is. No, like the struggles that people have had to endure. It humbles you. It makes me complain less. Like I'm much more, like aware and cognizant of like what is a bad day for me is a great day for most people.
100%.
Like Hopeworks, 20 years. Like first of all, I can take very little credit to the success. Like I'm joining that talented team.
Right.
So I'm fortunate there. But they made a ton of mistakes and errors, and trial and error throughout and figuring out the process. But like why Eric came is another example. We want our young people to see success stories, not like, hey, I was privileged off the bat, had excelled in school, I went to Harvard, and I've always been successful. They're not going to be able to relate to that. But like seeing somebody who has had challenges and struggles and made it, and like saying like, here are positive role models, here are opportunities, here's somebody that can be real and can talk. And just coming is
authentic voice. You said
exactly, very much so. And just coming is like as a positive interaction and an opportunity for hope. So real quick, I'll share Hopeworks. You're a young person and you're looking to change your life. You're maybe making like minimum wage, or you're stuck, or whatever the situation is. So it's a workforce development nonprofit. We take young people. And we have a training program, so you learn how to do coding and graphic design and something called GIS, Geographic Information System, which is like interactive map making. So you're learning these tech skills that are really valuable. Right. And with the idea and thought that you can better your life, you can propel yourself into a more stable job and career. Because right now, what do we know? We know tech is king. Like there's so many opportunities. It commands a really high salary. So the people that started Hopeworks thought, hey, if we can take young people from Camden and Philly, that teach them something that's really valuable, provide them professional development. So academic coaching, you don't have your high school degree, you don't have a college degree, you can get it. We have academic coaches that provide support, so they're teaching. You can get your take your HiSET test, get your GED. You can go to college and get a scholarship if you want to. You can do all these things, right? We have career readiness coaches. Have you ever had an interview before? Mock interview, resume writing. We have opportunities for people to come in and do these chat and choose, talk, connect with our young people. But the idea, and we pay them, which is incredibly important. And that's what like shocked me about the program is you don't have to spend money to get this training and professional development. We'll pay you. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're working retail or fast food, and you're like, I love this, but I can't give up the paycheck. That's a hurdle that a lot of programs don't pay, and so young people can't participate. But the fact that Hopeworks will pay you a stipend for every module you complete, every type of training you get, and then employ you. So what I do at Hopeworks is I focus on our social enterprise. We actually do business services. We're lucky where we not only train our young people, but we give them their first professional work experience. Who better than us, right? They know us, they're familiar with us, and so we leverage the skills that we just trained up these young people. We coached them up, we hire them for 1 to 2 years in our program, and it's web development, so creating websites and graphic design work and web tools. It's something called GIS, so interactive map making. It's identifying assets using GPS, using this really cool technology. And then trauma-informed training. we're trauma informed, the program is trauma informed, I can go out and try to teach people it, or we can have our young people, which is called the youth healing team, go out and do it, and that's like authentic voice.
Yeah.
And then again, opportunities for them to like connect and have, you know, share. They don't necessarily share about their own specific trauma, but they share about like resiliency.
Yeah.
And like being resilient and community and coping and saying like, yeah, I had faced trauma and this is where I am now, and like this is how you get there and this is what you need to do. So we employ them.
That's amazing.
And we pay them livable wages. Mm-hmm. And we're able to do that because we're bringing in revenue. We're obviously donations and grants are a big part of it, but the social enterprise, those three businesses do work with organizations like Comcast and New Jersey American Water and Subaru. We have tons of partners, and AmeriHealth, Caritas, right? They partner with us because A, we can deliver really valuable business services to them. So it's a mutually beneficial partnership. And it looks amazing for them, and it is. Like, it's an opportunity for them to have social impact, for them to have a diverse supplier, for them to connect with young people, for them to have diverse talent funneled to them. You know, for New Jersey American Water, they hire a ton of our young people because they get to work with them for 6 months, 9 months on these business, you know, these projects.
Yeah.
And they could say, hey, Zora, Ashley, Jalen, we know them. Mm-hmm. We know they have the skills.
Yeah.
We have diversity metrics that we have to hit. We have hiring practices that we're focused on. I would love to invite, you know, Ashley to go through the interview process. And for us, it's a no-brainer. Ashley has already been working with New Jersey American Water for 6 months. She knows them. She knows the work. Like, she's more familiar. So it's really... It's a program that blew my mind, which is why I was like, I need to work here. Mm-hmm. And it's a program that's really successful. And
listening to you, it
takes a lot of time.
It blows my mind. And I forgot who you said. Someone said that you guys, they partner with you because it's valuable. That's an understatement. You being valuable. One of the saddest stories I heard working at Vision Quest is when a young lady told me she was in sex trafficking, and it was her father who actually introduced that to that world. So you gotta have an authentic voice. You have to be vulnerable as a person. But listening to Hopeworks, when that young girl goes, or young guy for that matter, when they go to this program, and then you tell them, no, listen, you go through all this. And during the process of going through this, you get paid. Changes their world. Mm-hmm. Changes the whole concept of them not being able to treat their trauma, right? And they may end up telling you their trauma without you even wanting to know, or them not knowing they were going to tell you to begin with, because that trust is there.
And they unpack a lot. Like there's a lot, and you know, it's like. We can train them in the skills. Mm-hmm. We can help them with the soft skills, communication and talking and working things out and coping. Like, you know, if you've never had a professional work experience where like you've gotten in, you don't agree with somebody, like how do you handle that? Right. Or like you receive like constructive criticism or something like that. Like, what is that like? So it's best for Hopeworks to have that, right? Get that work experience, build out their portfolio and resume, and then when they're ready, then that's when they leave that nest to Hopeworks. And then, and to be honest, like, it doesn't just mean, okay, you get a job and now you're gone, and like we forget about, because what Hopeworks does is like, are you having success? So all right, now you're at you know, Comcast, or now you're at New Jersey American Water. Let's meet with your manager. Let's meet with you bi-weekly, because we don't want you to just get a job. We need you to keep that job. We want you to be stable. So earn that high income, $38,000 or above. Keep that job. We have a 90% retention rate, 89 or higher percent retention rate, 1 year retention rate. Like, that's how you get yourself from, you know, that's how you propel yourself and get yourself, you know, in a more stable environment and really work your way out of poverty. Yeah. And it's awesome. It's awesome to see. It's exciting, and it's like, you know.
Two of the things you mentioned a nest, and that's one of the, well, you both mentioned a couple things, but two of the things that stood out are two of the things that Mike is extremely passionate about. One is this notion that we have to kick our kids out of their house at 18, and you talk about all of those things. these skills, you need all of those skills. And then if you gave them that information by the age 18, yeah, you can get out there. But if you didn't give them any of those things that you talked about, then they got some more learning to do. And then the other thing was, when you take the money out of the equation, right? It's always the goal. Gotta get the money, gotta get the money. Now you're taking that a couple notches down. It's not about the money. It's about all these other things. And that's extremely impactful to me. So again, Mike, I get that from you, man.
Yeah.
If you can kind of speak on that, because I know, again, you always talk to me about or just speak about it in general. Like, everybody wants to kick their kids out at 18. You just learning.
Yeah, that's like the biggest narrative coming from the urban environment, right? And I'm sensitive to say certain things in that way, because I understand dealing with poverty, right? Some parents have the thought, you got to get out, because I don't have enough space, I don't have enough capital.
That's the reality.
I don't have enough money to feed you,
Right?
And to go back to marry it to your point, where it's like, okay, you're 18, either you never had a job or go get a job. I don't know how to write a resume. I don't know how to sit down for 30 minutes and even have a dialogue about who I am, what I provide, or all of these things. So that's the narrative. 18, get out. I don't have the space, I don't have the money. But then what happens when your child is 18 and this is the first interaction they have with the world? Sit where, work where, 8 hours. I couldn't sit down for 8 hours in school and learn. What makes you think that I can sit somewhere for 8 hours and live? It's impossible.
It's so true. Like, if you don't prepare somebody and set them up for success, and then are shocked when they're not having success, like, where's that disconnect? So schools, like professional development, so schools teach you lessons, right?
Yeah.
They teach you academics, they teach you, your math and reading and writing. Certain schools and certain programs that are successful are teaching professional development. Like, how do you market yourself? How do you have conversations, carry yourself? Propel. So Propel is this organization in Camden that partners with Hopeworks that's starting to do some of the stuff when you're 15, 16, 17, when you're sophomore, junior, senior in high school, because it's too late. When you're 18, and if you've not had it, I shouldn't say it's too late, but you're behind. You're behind the eight ball.
You're not on the level of other programs like financial literacy.
Right. To budget, to save,
Yeah.
or like, so something that we're just starting to, like, we struggled with, and we're just starting to work ourselves through is okay, so you want to have a place. All right. Well, do you have savings? Do you have the wherewithal to, like, maintain it? What happens if your hot water heater breaks? Like, so stable housing is really important. So we're getting into that. Like, we have a crib. We've had a crib for a while. We call it a crib, right? It's a place for our young people to live, right? And it's subsidized, and we're looking to get more properties in Camden.
That's at Hopeworks, or you talking about another place?
Hopeworks. So Hopeworks has something called the crib. And then through this, it's a little bit early, but like I can say, like, through this organization, Millennial Block, which is a cool company, nonprofit, they're going to go purchase 2 homes, and our young people are going to live there, and the rent is subsidized, where they pay a rent, but that rent actually goes into a savings account for them. Right, some of it will go to pay for utilities and maintenance, but a large chunk of it goes into a savings account, so that when they're prepared to move on, maybe it's a year or 2 years, they can take that chunk of change and put a down payment or first month, last month security on an apartment, right? They have the means, because it takes a while. But we need to also teach them, like, how to do house maintenance and, like, how to do just simple things. And you can't take it for granted that, like, you learn that as a kid in
Yeah,
your
you
house.
ain't living with your mom no more.
Right.
How do you live outside of the nest?
Who's going to take, right? Who's responsible for it? It's you.
Clean it up,
Ultimately,
yeah.
it's you responsible. But if you've never done it before, how are you going to learn?
The magic goes away.
We gotta
You know,
keep
when the laundry got done and the dishes got done. And,
it's going.
Yeah.
And then you guys both spoke on financial literacy, right? People are so illiterate to financial literate, right? In terms of me teaching you how to save, I have to first teach you don't need, right? And everyone is America, just how it works with the money. We are hypnotized with materialism. You need this, you need that, you want this. It's almost as if the want is greater than the need.
Yeah.
What do you need versus what do you want? Do you
assets versus liabilities.
Boom.
Yeah.
And debt, credret card debt, right? Our young people, so many people.
You just gave me trauma.
Right, seriously. But so many, and like what, as a, look, I go back, I laugh, like, if I'm making money as a young person, I'm spending money. It's hard not to. You want to go out, you want to go with your friends, you want to buy new clothes.
Burning a hole in your pocket. That's what my money burning a hole in your pocket. Yeah.
It's not like them thing, it's a everybody thing.
Right.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's hard, and like you have to expect that, and you, like again, you have to take like your lumps. You have to learn things for yourself sometimes. Like you need to go through that.
Yeah.
But if you can have people continually preach and help you set aside money and talk about a budget and be like, here are your expenses, and here's what you're bringing in.
Yeah.
How much do you have extra, and what are you going to do with it? Where do you want that? You know, like if you've never had those conversations, then you know it's really challenging.
It's tough, man, because I feel like the biggest commodity is attention. So it's what you paying attention to, and how you paying for attention. You know, what are you paying? What do you need to do to get attention? I gotta wear this Gucci belt. I don't have a house to live in, but if I wear this Gucci belt, I'm going to get everybody. So what are you doing to pay attention? And then what I mean by what you're paying attention to, people pay to figure out what it is that you're paying attention to. Amazon is the biggest seller because they know what people are paying attention to.
Yeah.
Google, Facebook, Instagram, they're paid to keep your attention. They strategically do these things so that you're looking at this all the time. That's the biggest commodity, and then to flip it back over to how much we're paying, what we're willing to pay for attention. We're willing to sacrifice a lot of things when it comes to somebody giving me attention. You know, people throw money in the air to pay for attention. People wear different things.
And this brings us back to that point where, like, and this is a whole nother conversation, but social media, right? There's valuable things and there's assets, but there's also this world that social media lives in, influencers, that is not real.
Right.
And like if you don't know that, like we talk about, you have to have those experiences, see things for what they really are.
See things for what they really are.
Because if you're gonna be a copycat, this is not my line, but I love it. If you're gonna be a copycat, you better copy the right cat. Like if you see people and you're like, that's who I want to be, and that's not necessarily right. Like it's, I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, you need to experience things for yourself, right? Go out there and find out. But you also need to know what is real and what is fake.
We're here now.
Yeah.
Right now, seriously.
I just was looking, copying people in social media. I just seen Kevin Hart. He made a video about, and he's not the only one. This is just the latest one I seen. He had 100 million followers. He took time out, made a video. He was just like, "Oh, thank you, da ba 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 ba," and as I was looking at it, I was like, "Man, how many people in the world did he just influence to have them think or realize this is the goal?
Yeah.
This is what it's about." Right. Kevin Hart, you didn't tour the world. You got your own production company. You're supposed to have 100 million followers. It's really nothing to you.
And that's the trauma related to that. Because so think about that. One of the things, I think Denzel Washington said it once. Growing up, we had to convince the 4 people or 3 people or however many people in your house to like you.
Yeah.
You know, and we did everything we could in order to get them to like you. Now we got to get 100 million people to like us, or 1,000 people that's following us to like us. Could you imagine?
And the goal is unachievable for me.
It's unachievable. It's not. You cannot.
But for
kind of hard. Right.
You literally are Hollywood.
But that's
you can do it.
I don't. Hopefully, to your point. Yeah. Hopefully, he's not. And there's trauma in that, man. I hear where you. That's tough. Yeah.
Listen, I have two. One, I think we're going to get to a point where there's going to be a social media class, and two, if not already, they're going to label some sort of trauma to social media. It's going to be like that's Instagram phobia or something. It's
have you guys watched Black Mirror?
No.
Mm-mm.
So there are episodes that I was going to say, when you said it's not reality, one of the points I think you made before that is that it is reality.
Yeah.
It's the reality in which people are living in now, even though it's not.
Right.
You know, people live for the gram. Do it for the gram.
Yeah.
They buy things. They parse out their day. They put on the clothes that they put on so that they don't wear them again. They it's like they celebrate things on there. I leverage it. Social media is a great tool. You get to keep in touch with people. You get to keep in touch with family. You get to post things now. You don't even get a birthday card anymore. You just say happy birthday, and you don't have to leave the house. You don't have to go see anybody anymore. I don't like that part about the tool, but it is devious. Like that, pointing that out right there, like people trying to reach 100 million followers, like that's trauma in itself. Somebody trying to see in that and saying, oh man, I got to get my followers up.
Something that I think is important is like recognizing trauma, because before I don't know, and like again, this is something where you tell me, but like growing up I didn't have a ton of experience, and not a lot of people talked about trauma.
Right.
And like I don't know about within where you guys grew up and within your communities, but like a lot of our young people talk about like nobody talks about trauma. Nobody talks about trauma, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think there's a stigma and there's a taboo, but maybe as more people talk about it and more people realize what other people have gone through and what they have gone through, they're not the only ones. Like your mind is not broken. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Like, and for those that have experienced a lot of trauma, it doesn't define who you are, and it doesn't mean that you have to stay who you are. Like there is progress that you can make. There's healing, unpacking that trauma, learning to live with it, never going to go away. Like it definitely imprints who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But doesn't have to be something that like continually holds you down.
Yeah.
And that's like, so the youth healing team and the trauma-informed training, like, we worked with the Mental Health Caritas, a great partner of ours, and we're working with Cooper and a bunch of different people. Like, it's not taboo, like, and leadership, like C-suite leadership needs to be like, if you care about your employees and you care about people, then you have to like talk about it, help them, provide them support and services so that they can deal with it. Like it's not like, oh, I'm the president, they're my employees, that's their personal life, and that's what it impacts everything.
So touch on that though, the chronic stress versus the tolerable stress, and which you come into different companies and kind of help them with. I think you do it two different things. You help with employees, but you also help with people that may be on the phones with people from underserved communities. So can you
So there's like a couple, and I'm not at like right now I'm thinking about like Kate Dougherty is our community impact director, and she's probably like, if she sees this, she's going to be laughing and smiling. Like, okay, like and like even our youth healing team, like Kayana and Alicia, exactly. They're like, what is Dan about to say right now? But I will do my best. So there's levels of stress. Like even this, like a podcast taping, like there's positive stress, right? A job interview, getting married, like, your heart rate goes up. Like you get a little bit sweaty. That's natural. Then there's something called chronic stress, which a lot of people are facing now, where it's just the stress of the pandemic, month after month, right? People that might not have experienced a lot of stress or a lot of trauma in their life, it's a longer time period. And then there's toxic stress, which is like a severe specific incident. It's it's abuse, it's substance abuse, it's sex trafficking, it's all, rape. It's something that is really serious, right? That impacts brain development, similar to like lead poisoning and toxic stress have similar impacts and changes to your brain and your development. So as a young person, like that's, you
mentioned that being factual though. You said there's studies based on that.
Yeah.
That's
and
the same
ACEs,
impact.
Right, the ACEs study is an adverse childhood experience study, right? So for 20 plus years, people have been studying what does trauma do to a young person, and like how does that have adverse impact on their life?
I don't want to glaze over that. Can you say that again? The impact that it has to a brain has the same impact that lead poisoning.
So it does it. People talk about, oh, my brain doesn't function right. Well, your brain is functioning right. It's exactly how it's designed to be, right? There's a toxicity, right? But it's not like your brain is not broken. It's built to work that way. So what the youth healing team does, and what all these other organizations that focus on like trauma-informed care, which is what we are, and like trauma-informed training is, okay, so understanding what trauma is, what its impact does, and then helping support people. A patient navigator, so somebody who's picking up the phone for 911 or at a hospital and dealing with people that are constantly stressed. Trauma and stress, it's vicarious. It has a ripple effect. Yeah. If I'm working in a situation like that, eventually I start to feel that stress. I'm dealing with it day in and day out, right? It's emotionally heavy. It's baggage. So we just teach people how to recognize and understand what trauma is, how to deal with trauma, how to have healthy coping mechanisms, because alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, that's not necessarily, it's not a healthy coping mechanism, but it's an effective coping mechanism, right? People are using drugs to self-medicate to take care of that trauma. It's not
the Band-Aid,
right?
Yeah.
So there's that. So we work with
the Band-Aid on a metal pipe, I'll say.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can try to treat it with those things, but it's gonna blow up, right? Yeah.
That was cold right there. That was just some cold game. And to your earlier question, you was like, a lot of people don't speak on trauma because the stigma is that's weak. Whoa, what are you crying about? Or what you telling you've been through? Especially if you're a man. Whoa, keep that to yourself. So now others believe trauma is not talking about it. That's the resolve to their trauma. I'm not even going to speak on it. That's how I fix this trauma. Not speaking on it. But
bury it.
I was just listening to Common, and he went through some trauma. He said he buried his trauma experience so far when he was 9, he didn't realize it happened until he was 40 doing a movie. And he had to stop and was like, wait a minute, this is not a movie. I'm not reading the script. This actually happened to me.
Wow.
And I'm like, so for the power of the brain is superb. It's like you were able to bury that far deep down, and then you had to, and so now you actually start. He literally relived his trauma because the role was part of the trauma he experienced. Man, it's cold.
So
it is.
Dan, can you and can you tell us what you do at the end of the day of every Hopeworks day? Could you talk us through that real quick?
So we do a morning and an afternoon huddle. So this is like, at first I was like, oh, this is a little like, I call it hokey, corny, but like, after the third time I was like, this is my favorite. Like, I love this. I look forward to it. I'll join a huddle. Like, if I took the day off, like, I'll still try to go and like,
just to do it.
So huddle is, in the morning you ask questions. So you gather around like your team. It could be the whole staff, it could be a group, whoever you're working with. And you ask a couple of different questions. So you always ask, how are you feeling? And how are you feeling helps people understand, I got to reflect, I got to internalize, like, how do I feel right now? Am I happy? Everybody is like, how are you feeling? I'm good. Yeah. Are you good?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you are. Maybe you're like, having a great day and you're feeling energetic, or you're feeling optimistic, or you're feeling hopeful or grateful. Those are feelings. Or you're using good as a masking agent and you're tired, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're down on yourself. So we always ask, like, how are you feeling? And then we ask, how do you want to feel? Because that's really powerful. You don't need to be stuck in that feeling. If you're feeling negative, you don't need to feel negative all day. So just asking, how do you want to feel, starts to change that mindset of like, hey, I feel down, or I feel crazy, or I feel anxious, but I want to feel calm. I want to feel helpful. I want to feel supportive. I want to feel successful. And then we ask, something called a safety plan. Like, what are you going to do to help you feel that way? Like, are you going to stretch? Are you going to do deep breathing? Are you going to take a walk? Are you going to, call your grandma? Are you going to eat something healthy? Like, what can you do? Something to kind of just balance yourself out, kind of realign. And that helps people continually think, like, I got to use my safety plan. Like, whatever it is, pet therapy, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Like, just pick something that makes you happy, that kind of centers you.
Yeah.
Then, what's your goal? So for all of our young people, all of our staff members, we have to know how we're feeling, how do we want to feel, what's on our safety plan, and what's a goal? Goal set every day. Every day I need to focus on, like, is it completing something on my to-do list? Is it reaching out to Eric to, like, help with the podcast? Is it making a sale? Is it, doing some sort of plans for the weekend? And then who can help or encourage you? So many people don't ask for help. Same thing with, like, I don't want to talk about trauma because that's weak. I don't want to ask for help because that's weak.
Right.
I would not be successful if I did not ask for help. Like, I rely on so many people. Anytime I have a win, it's because 6 other people did something for me. And that's just the truth. That's the nature of my role. So I have to ask for help. And by asking for help, like, if we're in this as a huddle, you know how I'm feeling, you know how I want to feel, you know what my goal is,
right,
and you know how you can help me. You know who's going to be responsible. So it just helps us with communication.
Okay.
It helps people with engagement. Like, we want to talk about HR and productivity, like for companies. If you do huddles every day, your staff are going to be more engaged, better communicating, better helpful, like goal setting. Then we'll revisit, end of the day, how are you feeling? What was your goal? Were you successful? Did you accomplish it? And who did you help or encourage? So each day when I go to Hopeworks, I know I need to know how I feel, what my goal is, and who I can ask for help, as well as who needs help, who I can provide support to.
That's a lot of mindfulness. Dan, we didn't ask you, and I have to before we leave, how are the children, youth, teenagers picked? Are these specially handpicked, or they could just walk up in there and they're in there? How does that process go?
So technically it's 16 to 26, 27, but really, we've had young people all the way up to 28, 29, 30, right? We're not particular.
Okay.
There's no test. Like, you want to come to Hopeworks, you need to do 2 things. Show up and not be a risk to anyone else.
I was going to say show out, but no.
16 to 27.
I mean, you want to be 28 and come, we'll probably take you. Like,
Right.
No, I mean, honestly,
if you're 40, I'm sorry.
No, but seriously, it's for young people. We want to have low entry, no hurdles, no barriers.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, people are like, what do you charge for companies to hire young people? No recruitment fees. Like, why would we want to impede somebody from getting hired? So for us, like, you want to come to Hopeworks. Now we're remote because of the pandemic, but before you used to show up and get the training. That's it.
Right.
Paperwork, your name, emergency contact will help everything out. You don't have a bank account, don't direct deposit, don't have an ID, all that stuff we'll figure out.
How do they get in touch with you?
So Hopeworks, visit us, hopeworks.org.
Okay.
We're in Camden. You can call me, 856-319-5207. Come visit Hopeworks, 808 Market Street in Camden. There's a ton of people that are happy to help, talk to you.
Okay.
So come check us out.
Any Instagram? Or no?
We have social media.
Okay.
Yeah, social
Facebook.
media. The whole thing, the whole nine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found you.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Mike, you got any businesses you want to recognize? Okay.
Hopeworks.
Nah, that's love.
Hopeworks. Beautiful conversation. Beautiful foundation. And it really, listening to everything now in person, it really is symbolic of what Eric and I are doing, and hopefully more people pick up on it. Just the whole concept of, we here now. It's like being in that present moment, right? And it's like Hopeworks, yo, no matter what you've been through, you're here now, right? And we have so much to offer you because you have everything to offer yourself.
Yeah,
true.
I agree, and that, like the title of the show, you can, I can, so you can too.
Yeah.
So let's, you're a friend of the show. We'll come out to visit. We'll get Reese in touch with some folks that so he can talk about production. But there's going to be some action items along with this this connection, this partnership. So I look forward to it, Dan. I appreciate you, man.
I would love to come and volunteer, talk, be spoke to. I would love it, seriously.
Yeah, well, we welcome that opportunity. We love it. I mean, I know we have talked about, like, for us, like, forget about me. Mm-hmm. Like, I want young people to be a part of this. I want you to connect with them. Okay. Like, there's definitely an interest and a need. Awesome. So I love it. Right. Thank you for the opportunity to connect.
Hey, listen, people, rate, review, subscribe. Let us know what we did right, what we did wrong. Talk to us, man. Later.
Peace.